So apparently the First Amendment of our Constitution. Are you familiar with that? The First Amendment. Well, apparently our First Amendment may not actually have much time left. It may be close to being done. You know, it's had a good run. The First Amendment had a good run. But there is a bill that has passed this week in the House of Representatives, and in fact already passed the Senate. And there's no reason to believe that the White House is going to veto it. The bill goes by H.R. 347. The full title of the bill is the Federal Restricted Buildings and Grounds Improvement Act of 2011. Kind of an easy title. Who wouldn't want buildings and grounds improved, right? I mean, buildings and grounds they should be improved. Sure they should. Unfortunately, the bill is pretty nefarious. RT actually has a really great report on it. The bill on its surface alone supposedly updates security at the White House. Which, the White House, I don't know if you've ever been to the White House. I have. The White House seems pretty secure. The White House is one of the most secure buildings around, really. It's a pretty secure building. The wording and implications of this bill are frankly downright frightening and really unconstitutional when you look at it. Currently those trespassing at the White House are covered under local Washington, D.C. law, and 90+% of the times, those people are charged with a misdemeanor. Like, say protesters who, say, for example, chained themselves to the White House fence. Those are most of the time, those people are given a ticket. Like, except in some cases, like Dan Choi, they're not. Well, anyway, the new law makes, quote, trespassing at the White House a federal felony. Which that's one thing. Truthfully, obviously protesting at the White House, there aren't a lot of protest options actually inside the physical White House. I mean, security at the White House is obviously high. It's the White House. You could try to wander off on a tour, but you're going to be caught pretty quickly if you wander off on a tour. You got to go through all types of security. Sometimes people climb the fence, but they're also arrested very quickly if they climb the fence. Here's the thing, though. Beyond just the White House grounds, this bill extends, sadly and frighteningly, beyond the White House. And that's where this gets really, really, really scary. Reading from RT, quote, the new legislation allows prosecutors to charge anyone who enters a building without permission or with the intent to disrupt a government function with a federal offense if Secret Service is on the scene. So here we go. So this is all about Secret Service. So now not only is it a felony at the White House, not just the White House, it now means any building that there's any Secret Service protection going on. Any building at all going on here. Under the law, reading from this, under the law, quote, any building or grounds where the president is visiting, even temporarily, is covered. As is any building or grounds, quote, restricted in conjunction with an event designated as a special event of national significance. So what exactly does national significance mean? Well, as you can guess, it can mean pretty much whatever the hell they want it to mean. The language is so vague, it really can mean anything. And the language of this bill saying that if they disrupt any type of event. So essentially what this means, everybody, if the president is giving a speech anywhere at all, the president of the United States is giving a speech anywhere, and say, for example, you or anyone else decides to, say, mic check the president, which is not out of the realm of possibility. If you or someone else mic checks the president of the United States, not only could you be ejected from the event, which would be expected, not only could you be ejected, now you can be charged with a felony with a possibility of up to 10 years in prison. You heard me right. A felony with up to 10 years in prison. So say you're not an Occupy person. Say you're a Tea Party member and you want to protest Obama. You're a Tea Party member who wants to protest Obama because, he's a socialist, communist, Marxist, Kenyan, Muslim, or whatever you think he is. Say you go to an event and you interrupt the president and disrupt the president. You could now be charged with a felony and thrown into prison for up to 10 years. People, I don't have to tell you that. That's bad. Not being able to protest the president of the United States, obviously that's bad. But here's the thing. It's bad, but it's actually worse than that. It gets worse. Because this law doesn't just apply to the president of the United States. No, it doesn't. It applies to anyone receiving Secret Service protection. That includes ex-presidents. That includes current presidential candidates. So right now, at this very moment, Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum are receiving Secret Service protection. So under this law, if you were to disrupt an event with Mitt Romney and Rick Santorum as a form of political protest, or hell, just to friggin' do it, you could be charged with a felony and receive up to 10 years in prison. You want to protest Rick Santorum? You want to protest Mitt Romney? You could face 10 years in prison. The bill also says, the way they word it, it says in the building or the grounds of the building. So say if you're being, quote, disruptive outside a Romney speech. Maybe he's giving a speech at a hotel or something like that. Maybe he's giving a speech anywhere, at a hotel in a city. Or Rick Santorum or Obama, they're giving a speech at a hotel. You could face a felony charge or 10 years of prison for disrupting things outside. You want to know who else gets Secret Service protection? Foreign dignitaries. Foreign dignitaries visiting the United States get Secret Service protection. That makes sense. We don't want foreign dignitaries on our soil to be attacked or killed or anything like that. It makes sense that foreign dignitaries get Secret Service protection. But here we go now. So if any of you listening, and I know some of you are planning to protest at, say, the G8 that's coming up in Chicago, if you're planning to protest, you could now face a felony charge under this law. Now, because here's the thing. Not only do foreign dignitaries, not only do ex-presidents, not only do presidential candidates receive Secret Service protection, currently, the President of the United States has the authority, with the stroke of a pen, to give anyone Secret Service protection. That is a power that the President of the United States has. Historically, they haven't, just given out Secret Service willy-nilly or whatever, but they have that power. So let me ask you a question. My friends. What if the President of the United States decided to give Secret Service protection to, say, the head of Bank of America? Or say to the head of Chase, or say to the head of Goldman Sachs, which under law he actually could. Currently, the president could give Secret Service to whoever he wants. And if he did, or she, maybe we'll have a female president someday, it's possible. If the president did, that would make disrupting an event that they're holding a felony as well. 10 years in prison. But let's go back to this another part of the bill, which is not only Secret Service, but also events of national significance. Again, the wording of this is so big. It obviously applies to something like the G8. It obviously applies to something like the DNC and the RNC, the conventions that are coming up. It also applies to something called the Super Bowl. So if you were to do some type of protest at the Super Bowl for some reason, protesting sexism in sports, protesting any reason you would protest the Super Bowl, you potentially could be charged with a felony. The language of this bill makes it a felony to protest. So how many members of the House voted against this bill? It passed, but how many members of the House voted against it? This bill must have just barely squeaked by the House, right? It must have just barely squeaked by. How many House members voted against this bill? 3. 3 people, just 3 Congress members. This bill passed 388 to 3. 388 to 3 this bill passed. So then you can ask, okay, it passed the House like that, but what about the Senate? What about the democratically controlled Senate? What about the Senate where everything needs 60 votes to pass the Senate filibuster? You obviously need 60 votes to pass the filibuster. Obviously, this didn't just fly through the Senate, right? This bill passed the Senate without an actual roll call vote. It passed the Senate with unanimous consent. There is not a roll call on this bill passing the Senate. It went through via unanimous consent. I don't have to tell you, this is bad. This is really, really, really bad. This is really bad, especially considering a report, that Michael Hastings of Rolling Stone published just this week. A new report that confirms with what you probably would guess. Obviously you could guess this. It's not like a surprise, but Hastings has in fact documented at Rolling Stone that the Department of Homeland Security is in fact keeping tabs on the Occupy movement. I know, you're shocked, right? I know I was shocked to find that Homeland Security was tracking the Occupy movement. But how did Michael Hastings find this out? How did he find this out? Well, from a little source known as WikiLeaks. Surprise, surprise. It turns out WikiLeaks actually obtained a Homeland Security report on the Occupy movement. Hastings points out that the most disturbing part of this report that Homeland Security has on the Occupy movement is in fact in the very last paragraph. I'm going to read the last paragraph for you because it is pretty frightening. This is from the last paragraph of the Homeland Security Occupy report. It reads, quote, "The growing support for the OWS movement has expanded the protest's impact and increased the potential for violence." Okay, just right there, obviously, the Occupy movement is a nonviolent movement. But anyway, fine. Going back to the report, reading on, quote, "While the peaceful nature of the protests has served so far to mitigate their impact, larger numbers and support from groups such as Anonymous, substantially increase the risk for potential incidents and enhance the potential security risk to critical infrastructure, CI. The continued expansion of these protests also places an increasingly heavy burden on law enforcement and movement organizers to control protesters." That's right, they said it right there, that it's law enforcement's job to control the protesters. Reading on, as the primary target of the demonstrations, financial services stands the sector most impacted by the Occupy Wall Street protests due to the location of the protests in major metropolitan areas. Heightened and continuous situational awareness for security personnel all across CI sectors is encouraged. There you go, everybody. Homeland Security, the Department of Homeland Security, monitoring protesters, monitoring dissent, talking about, quote, controlling the protesters. But you know what? Hey, it looks like, with this new Secret Service bill, Homeland Security, it looks like you're not actually going to have to control them. It looks like you're not actually going to have to control them. They can just arrest them under the new bill. They can just arrest them and charge them with a felony and place them in prison for 10 years. They can do it for 10 years. Just put Lloyd Blankfein under protection. Just put Jamie Dimon under protection. Just put him under Secret Service protection and arrest all the protesters. Charge them with a felony. Boom, bam, it's solved. I mean, people, obviously, the whole idea of charging protesters with a felony, obviously, it lessens American citizens' chances of going to a protest. Just knowing that by going to a march, by going to a protest, you potentially could be thrown in prison for 10 years. Of course that stifles the dissent. It is a chilling attack on free speech and a chilling attack on democracy itself.